Today we're hiking past alpacas in Peru. Welcome to Vacation Mavens, the podcast that brings you travel inspiration and practical tips from two moms who know how to plan the perfect trip.
I'm Tamara from Your Time to Fly.
And I'm Kim from Stuffed Suitcase. With over 40 years of travel experience between us, we're here to share our favorite destinations from road trips to cruising, theme parks, and European adventures.
Whether you're planning a family vacation or a mom getaway, we have the tips and tricks to make memories that will last a lifetime.
So Tamara, you are back from a fun spring break trip, a pretty intensive one for spring break, I think. You and Hannah went down to Peru, which is a new country for you, correct?
A new country, a new continent. It was definitely a bucket list destination that we've talked about for a while, and I'm so glad that we were able to make it happen, and honestly, one of the best trips of my life.
That's awesome. Yeah. I know that you and I talked about, I think at one point we were trying to do like a mother-daughter partnered trip pre-COVID. We had tried to do that. Mm-hmm. It's good that you finally got to check that bucket list off because Machu Picchu is still on my bucket list. I've wanted to do it for a while. So why don't you first talk about how you came up with this idea? Because I know that it's linked to something that's pretty cool. So share that first.
Yeah. So a lot of people also, when they realize that I'm going to Chile right afterwards, they're like, wow, that's a lot of time in South America. And it just so happened that these trips are close together. But back in the fall, I saw some notifications about a travel. It's called the Adventure Travel Conservation Fund auction. And they have a number of companies within the adventure travel space that donate trips or gear or hotel stays, and you bid on them and it all goes towards the conservation fund. And a friend of mine, Tara from Better Beyond, she had done this day trip with her daughter last summer, and she had also won it in this auction, which is what made me think of it.
Idea. Okay.
And so she was promoting it and I was getting the emails about it, and I was like, maybe this is a way to finally make that dream a reality of going to Peru. And they have some really cool trips. So I would say it comes out in the fall, like maybe just to follow or set some kind of alert.
Yeah.
I'll try to share it too when it comes up again, because I would be all for trying to win something again.
Nice.
But I won this 5-day trip. And at first I was bidding on the 7-day, but then the 5-day, that went too high. The 5-day was actually perfect because you do need a couple days before the trip and a couple of days after. So it fit really nicely. Hannah only had to take 1 day off of school to fit it into her spring break, just because it's a long travel day.
Yeah, from Arizona especially. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was
a little
able
easier
to get for, I would say maybe between 50 and 60% of the price. I'm pretty sure that was 50 to 60% of the price for one person, but it was for two people.
Oh, wow.
So it was
amazing.
Fabulous deal.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
So it just worked out. It worked out great. And
That's
then
awesome.
I'm really happy that we did it. I'm really happy they were able to offer it during her spring break time, because we still don't know plans will be. It was like, why did you pick this season? And I'm like, because that was the week she gave me.
That was what worked. That's the joys of family travel still.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Okay. You mentioned that you had to be careful about the timing, like the 5-day actually worked better. Why don't you, because I know the reasoning for that, but why don't you tell our listeners who might not know, why did you want some cushion? I know, especially at the front of a trip like this.
Yeah, the trip leaves from Cusco, which is at, I think, 11,000 feet. And so you really need time to get used to the elevation. I did not have enough time. They recommend probably 3 or 4 days. And the hard thing about the trip in particular was that I had COVID for 2 weeks going. And so that definitely made the breathing part even harder. And you can there's medicines that can be prescribed by your doctor. I had one that you can start taking before you go that help with altitude sickness. But altitude sickness can really manifest as headache or nausea, vomiting, gastrointestinal issues. And then it can get more serious. But most of the time it's those kind of symptoms. But it's also shortness of breath. And so we basically got there like 1 o'clock in the morning. So we had 1 day before we then started our journey.
Yeah.
And even in walking in Cusco up some hills, we were going to dinner one day. And luckily, I'm so thankful that Hannah was not impacted by this. As soon as I woke up the next morning, and I had been drinking water like crazy, and like hydration tablets and all of the things you're supposed to do. And I was still just so dry, had a headache.
Yeah.
I took the tea. They have the
Oh,
Coca tea or Coca candies that are supposed to help with it. What I learned a little bit too late is that also has caffeine in it, and you shouldn't take it after 5 p.m. So I'm like taking it all the time, making,
oh
so
no.
I was a
Yeah.
little
A
not
little
sleeping very
jittery,
well.
not sleep.
But
Yeah.
and that's also another side effect of altitude sickness is not sleeping well. So the first couple of days were a little rough, and I had very little appetite the first couple of days too. But walking up these stairs to dinner, I was literally wheezing. I was like, and I'm like, how am I going to do these hikes? And from there, we just went higher, and then we went
Oh,
down.
yeah.
Machu Picchu and Ollantaytambo is like further down.
I
But
knew
then when we
that.
came back to Cusco, I was like, oh, I'll be okay when I get back. I was having such shortness of breath. Like I would start talking, and then like my breath would catch and I would cough because I just felt
Wow.
like I couldn't get like a deep breath. So I'm like, I'm so
Wow.
glad that we're now heading back. I was even Googling what is the elevation at the Lima airport, and they were like, it's at sea level. It's 420. I'm like, yes, thank you.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So altitude is definitely something to think about, and that's
Yeah.
why you should get there early. And then I just wanted to spend a day or two in Cusco just to enjoy the city. We were originally going to do a day trip to Rainbow Mountain the day after, which if you've ever
Oh,
seen
is that
pictures
there?
of,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
gorgeous. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gorgeous, but it's pretty photoshopped from what people
Oh,
say.
really?
So basically that is at 14 to 15,000 feet.
Oh my
You can only
goodness.
be driven up so far, and then you have an option to take like a horse or an ATV, but they can only go up so far. You have to hike the last bit by itself, which is
Okay.
very steep, and it's been very rainy, so it was also like very slippery. So two of the people that were on our group that we'll talk about,
Yep.
that trek, they had done it and they were so disappointed. You also have to get up at 3:30 in the morning because it's like far away. It's a really long full day, and they were just really disappointed. And I was already thinking I might cancel this just because I have a feeling after these 5 days of being busy, we might appreciate a day just to
Yeah.
relax
Yep.
and not have to get up super early. And that was 100% the case. I have no regrets that I canceled it. I
Yeah.
mean, the
Good.
photos look amazing, but if you get there and how it's also very cloudy, so maybe the sun is out, maybe the colors show
The
up
colors
more,
show
but
more. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Good to know. I didn't even think that was part of that kind of trip. Okay, so you guys adapted, got some food. What was the food like when you were there? Like, how did the food situation go?
The food was good, really good. So there's, even in Cusco, it's not like a big city like Lima. I expected it to be more touristy, but there's a lot of different types of cuisine. There's definitely over the years been a big like Asian influences in Peru. Like it must be immigration, because even in New York, I remember there were like Peruvian Japanese restaurants. And we went to actually one Peruvian Japanese restaurant in Cusco. We went to a vegan restaurant one night that was recommended by the hotel, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And there were just even the traditional Peruvian food. It was very good, very big portions.
Well, I was just going to say, what is it? What are they,
So,
meat heavy? Are they
It's funny because when I came back, Glenn was like, so I guess you wouldn't want Mexican, anything spicy. I'm like, totally different. Like a lot of,
yeah, we think like Southwest Aztec, and it's like, oh yeah.
So a lot
more
of
Argentinian,
a lot of
beef,
meat, a lot of quinoa, because they
okay.
grow quinoa, they grow rice, and they grow potatoes. So a ton of like starchy, like rice, potatoes, quinoa, meat. Mostly meat being beef, pork, some chicken, and alpaca burgers. I did see on the menu.
I was curious.
I didn't ever have one. And I don't know, but a big thing to eat in Peru, I guess maybe more a special occasion, is guinea pig.
Oh, yeah. I saw your picture about that.
Your face is just like,
not my cup of tea.
So luckily, I saw a friend of ours had gone to Peru last year, and she shared a picture where it came out like full on the plate, like legs, all that. So the only time that we saw guinea pig on our travels was one of the first nights at the lodges. They did a traditional buffet, like where the food is basically buried in the ground, covered with
like a luau type thing.
Yeah, covered with the banana leaves, heated from below. And so they had like pieces cut up. Hannah tried a bite. She said it tasted more just like the earthy, smoky, that kind of flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Already a little like being super careful with what I ate. I was like, I don't think my stomach can handle that right now.
Yeah.
Which is probably more of a mental thing. But yeah, and it was really funny. We went through a couple of towns that were known for having these, I forget what the word is in Spanish, but for the guinea pig. And so out in front of these restaurants, they have like these guinea pig statues with a crown on them. It's like really, it's really funny. And
it's just their protein source.
Yeah,
and we also domesticated it.
We were at different places. Well, you saw pictures from the market where they were already skinned and ready to be
ready to go. They were like on spears too, or something, right?
No, they were stretched out.
Oh, they were just sitting there. Okay.
But one of the places we went to see alpacas and llamas, they had a cage like full of guinea pigs, and I'm like, just cute. And you're like, furry ones, and you're like, oh, you're so cute. Okay. See you later.
So, but otherwise, it was good food. It sounds like
it's good food.
Funny. I heard something about quinoa when it became really popular in the States. That it was one of those where it has a bad impact on the originating country because it became more profitable for them to ship it out to the States. So it increased the cost of quinoa in South America, and so it's an interesting global economy.
Interesting.
Fascinating.
Because even on the plane from Lima to Cusco, they gave out, instead of a granola bar, it's a quinoa bar, like the pops, the crispy kind of ones. And the only thing we didn't have, there were plenty of it. I just didn't want to eat it. I didn't have any salad or any fruit that wasn't peeled because I was just you can't drink the water there.
I wondered. Okay.
So I was nervous about anything that would have been rinsed in water. And there was
I'm always terrible about that because you know me, I'm a huge veggie salad person. And I struggle with that all the time. Like Africa, veggies. I'm always like, I'm gonna have a salad, sure.
Right. They had a lot of cooked veggies, and sometimes the salads on the menus, I'm like, that sounds so good. I really want a salad, but I'm like, I'm too scared. So
yeah. I normally have do it like at a heavy. Yeah, I'm normally okay, and I'll do it like at a major resort where I know they appeal to tourists, but like the standard city town restaurants, I would be.
One of the places they were like, it's an organic garden, and I'm like, I know, but they still washed it with the water, and and there's a sign in the bathroom that says, we filter the water for debris or whatever, but if your body is not used to this, don't drink it.
Yikes! Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. It's like the bacteria, the microflora, whatever, in different areas of the world are different, and people who live there, you get used to yours, but not everybody treats water like we do in the US, so it can be an issue for our intestines. But okay, so we covered a bit of that, and then you met up because after you spent some time in Cusco, you met up with your group. And so how many people were on the group? How did that go with, because we just talked about group travel, how did that initial meetup go? What did you think about how many people there were and what they were like?
Yeah, it was awesome. Like, it actually makes me want to do more group travel. I think we really lucked out. But there were 6 of us on the group. It was a
small number.
Yeah, which was nice. So 6 of us and 1 guide. There was a couple who had just gotten married. They were on their honeymoon. They were visiting from Israel. And then there was a father and daughter. She was maybe in her 40s, and the dad was like in his later 70s from Australia. And then it was Hannah and I from the US. Awesome. So it was everyone was so nice and so kind. And I was the slowpoke when it came to the uphill hikes just because of my breathing. People, legs, I'm like, it's not my legs, it's my lungs. And so some of them had a little bit more time to adjust, and they were probably just in better shape than me. Or honestly, altitude can affect anyone. Like they were telling me, like there's like a runner who was like having a terrible time with altitude. Like you so you can be in great cardio shape or whatever. And
and like you said, you being sick the 2 weeks leading up to the trip did not help at all.
No, not at all. But it was really nice. Like I said, everyone was really kind. We were in like a Sprinter van for most of it. And everyone just got along. We had great conversations. That's awesome. I really appreciated that. First of all, it was a local guide. That's one of the things we talked about in our group travel episodes. And so like the acknowledgement, and she was like part Inca, and she did some blessings for us, and she taught us some traditions and some words. And it was just, so I loved that. And I loved just getting to chat with people from other parts of the world. Like it was so nice to not just be with other Americans, because it's one thing like when you travel and you meet locals, but it's hard to have deep conversations. But when you're having like meals and traveling with these people, like you develop a bond. And you have some really good conversations, and it was great. I really loved it.
That's awesome. I remember when I did my first African safari trip, and we were in Botswana, and we stayed, my father-in-law had booked us at a place that was like just a normal local lodge. And we showed up there, and it was like communal dinners, and it was like a family from the UK, and then it was a couple from Australia. And it was just so nice to be not around. Whereas you go to the popular, like when I was at JW Marriott Masai Mara, it's like almost all Americans, right?
Mhm.
So it is nice when you can find those other, like you can travel brings so many people together, and it's fun when you can travel with other nationalities and still have a shared experience
Yeah,
with a
yeah.
different viewpoint. That's
I
fun.
really loved it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what sort of things did you guys do? You had a Sprinter van. So you hiked every day, you like made your way like from Cusco, they drove you somewhere and then you hiked for 5 days. Is that how it worked? And then like what was it like?
A little bit. So it's called a 5-day like lodge to lodge trek. I think at some points of the year there would be like even more hiking, but the thing about the trip is that so number one, it's great for people that do like hiking, but also like cultural experiences and that don't want to camp. So there's a lot of people that like hike the Inca Trail, which is closed right now anyway, but they hike the Inca Trail, you camp along the way, and then you get to Machu Picchu. And that's great when you're 20 something and that's what you like to do.
Yeah.
And even Hannah's, I don't even want to camp.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but when you want to have that outdoor experience, but still stay at a nice place. So
Yep.
perfect for that. It was
Nice.
definitely completely like my style of thing. So we basically, like on our first day, we went out, we started at the alpaca or llama museum, where we basically met a lot of different kinds of alpacas, vicuna, which is their national animal, which is their fur. Their wool is like extremely valuable because it's like ultra soft, and they
so is it like
them
it's
less.
is it a form of a llama alpaca?
It's like a smaller
like it's another one?
It's like a little one. And then there they have weaving, like women weaving. So basically that whole center is set up to support the community. And one thing I really loved about this trip, and it's with Mountain Lodges of Peru, is that they're very invested in their local communities.
Yeah.
So they're doing things to make even where some of the lodges are, those small little communities are very rural, very remote. They're bringing in doctors to look after the children. They're bringing veterinarians to look after like the horses and the alpacas, hiring locals. Like even one of our hikes, they hired a local mule driver. She really had a horse, but to help carry packs or carry water like along our route. And what they do is they have a list of people in the community that want to be part of that, and they rotate through that list so that everyone gets an opportunity to earn. And you know, so it's all really good that way. So this particular like cooperative supported, I forget, like a few hundred families through like their weaving and what they sell. So that's, it started with that, and then we visited a small town. So it was a lot of cultural experiences. Like we received a blessing from an Incan priest. We visited a jewelry, I would say factory, but it's a little more, that's not really a factory, but it's like where they craft like silver jewelry. We had lunch at like local houses, not just restaurants. We visited another like women's weaving cooperative where they greeted us with song and dance, and they were dancing with us and put their traditional clothing on us. And then, of course, like you want to buy something from them. In Cusco, and especially in Machu Picchu is, you think of the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, where it's like a lot of imported stuff, and it's just like tacky touristy. All what they call their artisan market is just like a lot of that. But when you're going to these more remote places, this is truly like the work of these women.
That's awesome.
You see them working on it, and you want to support them. And so it was a pleasure to buy things from them.
What'd you buy?
So it was a mix of that. What did I buy? Did you say? I bought 2 sweaters that were baby alpaca wool. I was actually going to wear one today, but it was making me too hot. So maybe a future episode. But it has like little alpacas, just nice. It's like a zip up with a hood.
Nice.
I bought a really nice like silver pendant with earrings and a bangle bracelet. And I got Hannah a little silver ring. And then I got us both like small woven purses, and then her a little change purse. And I bought a couple of placemats for our house too. So
nice.
Yeah, like nice, that's awesome. Very Peruvian, very authentic looking.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's nice. It's nice when you can get souvenirs that are usable. So then when you like pull it out, or when you see it in your closet, or when you go to use it, you're like remembered.
I'm happy. The trip. Absolutely. And you feel like, awesome. You supported locals, and you have something so memorable to come back from the trip.
So quick question, did you have to, since it was a hosted, like arranged trip, did you bring your own hiking poles or anything like that? And then did you have to carry your own packs, or how did that work?
So we did have to bring our own hiking poles.
Okay.
I will say the only downfall of this trip was like the pre-trip communication was not entirely clear. We were told that we could borrow a duffel bag that we would use throughout the trip, but that it could only be 5 kilos. And I was like, how on earth am I going to have
10 pounds
5 days of stuff, toiletries, everything with 5 kilos?
No.
I can go a couple pounds over. So anyway, our plan was I had a big suitcase because some of my hiking poles fold up into 3s, and so I can fit them smaller, but you still have to check a bag with hiking poles.
Exactly. You can't carry them on. I know. And then I realized that recently when I was thinking of Switzerland. I was like, shoot, I can't do carry on if I bring,
Yeah.
People don't know that. Even if you get portable hiking poles, you have to check your bag. Right. You can't carry them on.
My other hiking pole was like my old hiking poles, and they just collapsed, but it's still probably 3 feet long. Yeah. So I needed my big bag to angle one of those in there to bring for Hannah. But my plan was to like try to reorganize and just bring what we needed in the duffel bag for the trek part and leave the luggage at the hotel where we were staying initially. And then when we got there, she was like, oh, no, you can bring your bag. You just, for the Machu Picchu, when you take the train from I can never get this right, but Ollantaytambo, when you take the train from there to Machu Picchu, you can only bring a duffel bag. So there's where you need to just have basically one night's worth of stuff. And I'm like, that's a lot more doable. And then she was like, well, can you both share one? I'm like, if it's just for one night, we can share a duffel bag, but I can't share a duffel bag. Though? I know, it was definitely heavier because Hannah also brought her
I'm like, 2 people sharing 5 kilos? That's rough.
Did I have maybe not.
I was just going to say, you're not bringing a laptop or a pair of shoes. You're not bringing, those things are out.
So I don't know if that's always the case or it's just because we were a smaller group. Because my friend Tara, when she went, she said she had brought like a carry-on size bag and that they were frowning on that because the duffel bags were easier to fit into the back. Yeah. But I think because there was more space because there wasn't as many of us that they could fit the bag.
It's so funny. So much of what you're saying reminds me a lot of like my Africa trips I've been on and stuff because it's very much the same thing. They want soft-sided luggage because it's easier to like shove in and stack on top of each other. And inevitably someone still brings a roller bag in there and they just deal with it. But
yeah, I felt a little guilty because my plan was to leave it and then the driver's like heaving it in every day. And I'm like, sorry, like I was going to bring it. But like, I also couldn't, like if you had 2 duffel bags, we could have done it. But like for 2 of us to share one duffel bag for 5 days. But so back to your question about like, we did something together as a group that was more cultural. Like we visited markets, we did some of the things we talked about, or we visited like an architectural site, like an Incan site, and some of them were truly amazing. And then you had an option in the afternoon to do a hike. So the first day we did a hike, it was like a downhill hike, which I would much rather go downhill at elevation than uphill, but like my knee was killing me. And it was so rainy, like everything was super slippery. So it's definitely good to have the hiking poles.
Oh, that's right.
And you can definitely twist things pretty easily. Yeah. But it was really nice. It was a really great hike. And I will say it was really nice to be there, even though it was super rainy. It was very green and lush. And the fields were just covered with wildflowers. So it was like yellow daisies and purple lupines. And
that's
so they said later in the year, it's going to be just dry and brown. So I'm happy that we saw that. And then the next day we had it was like a 3.5 hour hike, which one couple just decided to go back to the hotel. The rest of us did it. Ended up being in the rain. The uphill was very hard for me. I felt really bad because the 70-year-old man was like waiting for me and he's like patting me on the shoulders. You okay? And I'm like, I don't have a choice. Like no one is rescuing me. Like, so I'm either making it out and I feel like the guide kept looking at her watch and I'm like, she wants to make sure we get back by dark and I gotta get moving. But once we started going downhill, I was fine except my knee. And then the next day I decided to opt out on the afternoon hike because I wanted to rest my knee because I knew Machu Picchu would be a lot of like steps and going down and things. And it was I just tweaked it. It needed some rest. If I had brought like a knee brace, that would have been smart. Yeah. But older joints, that's just what happens. And so you had these options, which was nice. That's nice. You didn't have to. You didn't have to.
Which is what We just heard from, about the group travel.
Yeah,
It's
with
like sometimes
Susan.
you can always opt out of stuff. So really quickly, before we wrap out, I just want to bring up the fact that you've talked about rain a lot and that it was red and stuff. It sounds like there are seasons you might want to, pros and cons to different seasons. So do you want to quickly touch on that? And then maybe we can close out with some final tips and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to remember South America. So they're on
the other side.
The opposite
Yep.
seasons. So
Southern hemisphere.
Right, exactly. And so this is their rainy season, typically more in February. I think they always close the Inca Trail in February for repair because it does get very washed out. They said that because of El Nino, like the phenomenon that comes through every few years, the rainy season is worse and it's also extending later. So they've actually now closed the Inca Trail and another popular trail through April, basically.
Okay.
So it's much worse this year. And it required, again, I'm so glad that I was with a group and not figuring any of this out on my own. It required some adjustments.
Like we're going to start here. We're only going to hike this part. We're going to, that on the ground. Yeah.
And like this road is closed because it's washed out. So do this thing instead.
Yeah.
But in a way, you don't even realize that.
Yeah,
of
course. Like you would. Yeah.
So that was fine. But it was a lot of rain. We needed our rain pants, our rain gear.
No, it was rainy season going into it.
I knew that rainy season was supposed to end the end of February and then early March.
Oh, interesting.
So I was kind of hoping that the rain would be more like light showers here and there. It was a little more than that. But I mean, we really lucked out that the day that we got to Machu Picchu, the sun came out, the fog burnt off. We had that epic experience. So
that's awesome. That was good.
The Incan priest came through on that for sure. Nice. And we're still waiting for the other wishes to come true. But it was not terrible. It was just like part of the experience. For the most part, it was like fairly light rain. But when you're out there in 3 hours, it still gets through.
Feels gross. Yeah. Okay. What about money? How did that work on, I'm sure with the trip, it was like you just had to tip your guide or something, but how did money, was it credit card? Did you need cash? Beforehand, did you get Peruvian?
Soles.
Okay, I was like, I don't know.
I did get some because I had heard that if you were going to buy some textiles and things that you would most likely need some cash. The big place that we went to, they have things that cost like hundreds of dollars, so they take credit cards. But some of the smaller places or the people that you see like on the side of the road or in the little villages or markets, they're not going to take credit cards. So you need cash for that.
Yeah, exactly.
I definitely needed cash to tip our guide and our driver. For bathrooms, like sometimes you have to pay like 2 soles for the bathroom or something like that.
Okay.
So you need some small bills for
that
kind
like
of thing.
Did you split because I always say that normally when I get to my hotel or something, I try and split like one of my larger bills. Like if I get money beforehand, split it to get the change. So how did you get the smaller for the bathrooms? Like I would just be worried that I wouldn't. I'm always worried that I don't have like you need the €1 when you go to Europe.
I know. I loved it when we were in Scotland and Wales. They had public bathrooms where you tap. Like you tap your phone and go.
Turkey. Okay, I think Turkey has like the card you buy, like Japan probably, where you just use the card everywhere. But I didn't buy a card in Turkey.
So I had requested from my bank small bills only.
Okay.
So I mostly had 10, 20, and 50s. So you can break, and a 10 is going to be like $2.50 or something like that. It's about, I think it was like 27 cents for 1 sole. So I don't know. I broke one and then I had some change. And then usually if you have a 10, they can break that.
So what do you typically, just quickly, this is probably a subject we can talk about later on, we're getting a little long, but what do you tip on these kind of things? Like when you have a guide for the day and then you have a driver, and I always struggle with this with like cruise excursions. What do you think tipping culture is? Like, what do you tip these guys?
I asked, and they said the company recommends $20, and this is US dollars, per person per day.
Okay, that would be $40 for you and Hannah each day. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And is that shared between the driver and the guide?
That was each.
Oh, each.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Okay, good. Because I know sometimes drivers are less than the guide.
I thought that too, although I will say I was very grateful for our driver because we had some really
you shared some pictures of him driving. Yeah, you had to get out and walk so he could make it up.
So I was like, Yeah, and
You
the
deserve
driver was
it.
only with us for 3 days, so it wasn't like the full
Okay.
5 days.
Yeah.
But I did feel like he deserved it because I got
And
out.
he was lugging your luggage all the
Yeah,
time.
too. Oh, and the nice thing about like the lodges, so Mountain Lodges of Peru owns a few lodges. They own a couple of hotels in Cusco, which the first one that we stayed at was one of theirs. And the first two lodges we stayed at were one of theirs. And then we stayed at a partner hotels. The lodges that they own, you leave your hiking boots and they clean them for you.
Oh, you said that.
Yeah,
I know.
that was nice because they were
That's
so muddy
huge.
and
Oh, I
gross. Yeah.
bet. Oh, I can't even
Then you're just kind of
imagine.
like walking around your lodge in your socks or whatever.
So
but
good idea if you're doing this trip, pack a pair of
little slippers.
portable slippers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isotoners, I think of from my grandma, like those
Yeah.
isotoners.
Or just if you have any of those old
The hotel slippers,
Yeah.
yeah. I have a couple of those. So any final tips that you want to share about this trip?
I definitely be prepared with the altitude. You can't do much about it, but you
Yeah.
can talk to your doctor about having a prescription. There is also like a natural supplement that someone had recommended to me about opening your lungs kind of thing.
Yeah.
Be prepared also for stomach issues. We did a chocolate making workshop on our last day in Cusco, and there was a couple from Canada, and they said that they had gotten food poisoning twice during their trip. And there was a girl from Portugal next to me, and she was like, I can't taste it because my stomach. So we were super
Wow.
thankful. But I had gone to a travel clinic ahead of time. I think it was Passport Health, and they sell this traveler diarrhea kit,
Yep.
which has like, it's not just like the Imodium stuff, but it has like the salts and the like all kinds of different things, which I used once. And I also I think we talked about on the podcast before, it has something where if I did have a salad, then I would take the pill like with it because it's supposed to attach to the bacteria.
Yep.
So I'm very thankful. But I also did get a prescription for Cipro from my doctor. Again, just in case I had some kind of bacterial stomach issue.
Okay.
And I'll just hold on to that for future travels. I mean, like Hannah and we both have sensitive stomachs.
Yeah.
We both got E. coli when we were in Morocco. We've been sick in many places. We didn't want to be in the middle of a hike, in the middle of nowhere, having major stomach distress. And so
absolutely.
that was a stressful thing. So I'd be prepared in whatever way you can.
Pack some stuff. Yeah. I think that that company, I just recently found them because they have a flu one, but it's Biotin or something. They have a whole bunch of more of the natural, like traveler sets for you. Like they've got all these different things.
Yeah.
So I think they're the ones that come out with that. They have the traveler's diarrhea set.
So those are the big ones. But what I will say in closing is that Peru to me was one of the most authentic destinations I've ever been to. And maybe Morocco would come close in parts of it.
Yeah.
But it was so there were times where I was just in my head saying, I am hiking past alpacas. Like, I just can't even believe, like, I am on this mountain in Peru with this gorgeous scenery around me, hiking past alpacas. This is blowing my mind. And even some of those drives that we did through this region called Lares, it's just so remote. Like, you just feel like you're seeing the real Peru. You're seeing like these small stone huts where people are living, but they're sitting outside in their authentic clothing. It's not for tourists. It is, they've got their alpacas and they're farming, and they've got their little one thing of a solar panel, just enough to like, which is provided by the community, but just enough to run the radio. And it's just, and the people, everyone I encountered was lovely. I loved it as a group trip. I loved the combined experience of cultural plus outdoor and hiking. Of course, seeing Machu Picchu was just a dream come true.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, like, I don't want to take away from the amazing other parts of the trip.
Exactly.
No, it was not
it's like
just
so many
Machu
people
Picchu.
just want to go to Machu Picchu, and it's don't miss that there's a lot to the
And I just feel like this was
awesome.
a really great way to feel like a very authentic experience. And I really, really appreciated that. It was a great trip.
Nice. Thanks for sharing with us. And yeah, I'm sure she'll have posts coming out soon. I know, Tamara, you shared a lot on your Time to Fly channel on Instagram, so you guys can go back and look at some of her stories and posts from there.
And because we're both traveling quite a bit over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a couple of weeks. I think we're going to skip next week, and then we're going to have another episode, and then we're going to have one more skip before we get back to our regular schedule. But it'll give you time to catch up on the old episodes.
Yeah, catch up and follow us on social media, of course, because we'll be sharing there. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye.
If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe and rate and review on your favorite podcast app, as that helps other people discover us. And if you want to see more, follow me, Tamara, at Your Time to Fly on Instagram and Facebook and all the others.
And you can follow me, Kim, at Stuffed Suitcase on Instagram, Facebook, and of course my blog.